My sister invited me to her wedding without telling me she was marrying my psycho ex. I tried to warn her, but she didn't believe me and called me jealous. Now he's stalking me again, has bugged my apartment, and threatened my best friend's life. So I'm fighting back. Back when I was 18, I had a crazy ex named Darren, who targeted me because I came from a broken family and had self-esteem issues. During the course of our 8-month relationship, he destroyed every ounce of self-worth I had left and made me fully believe I was undeserving of love. Every time he yelled or laid hands on me, he'd convince me it was my fault because I made him do it, that if I just didn't push him to, then he wouldn't hurt me. In just 8 months, he covered me head to toe in psychological and physical scars, and I only found the strength to leave him when he was arrested and thrown in jail. I quickly packed my bags and left his house, and I never saw him again. Until now. It was my sister's wedding and my first time meeting her fiancé. They lived together on the opposite side of the world. Seeing my sister Kathy walk down the aisle was surreal, and I wanted to cry of happiness until I saw the man walking down after her. Her husband, Darren. My entire world turned upside down. I felt nauseous, and I had to leave the ceremony there and then to go to the bathroom and throw up. My head was spinning. Did Darren track me down and seduce my sister on purpose? Did my sister know what he did? Did she not care? I had so many questions and so few answers. I came back out of the bathroom an hour later and everyone was already dancing. My sister was the first to notice and she called me over, introducing me to her wonderful husband. It took everything in me not to puke, especially as he flashed that same exact smile he used to after tormenting me. I barely mustered a hello, but right as I was about to excuse myself, my sister walked off, telling me to bond with Darren a little. My legs literally went jelly out of fear, especially as Darren took my hand and led me to the dance floor. I subtly tried to break free, but his grip was too tight, and he leaned in and whispered in my ear asking if I missed his touch. I wanted to get sick, and I whispered back to him I wasn't the same defenseless girl I used to be. But instead of taking me seriously, he chuckled. He said I was even easier than he remembers, and then warned me, saying he would make what he used to do to me feel like a massage if I spoke a word to anyone about our past. I gulped in fear, and even though I wanted to, I ignored my instinct to scream and instead just slow danced with him, fighting back the feminine urge to knee him in the gonards. The next few hours of my life were a blur. I don't remember much, but the one thing I do remember is going up to Kathy while she was away from Darren. I knew I was risking my life, but I had to tell her the truth. I took her out back so nobody could hear us, and I opened up to her. This was the first time I was ever honest about where all my scars actually came from. It was almost freeing, being able to cry without having to put on a brave face. But as I was pouring my heart out, I saw Kathy's face twisting. She was getting angry, but not at Darren. She was getting angry at me for lying. She refused to believe me, saying I was just jealous she found a husband before I did. I begged her to please listen to me. Darren was a monster capable of this. I showed her my burn mark down there, but she still wouldn't listen, and told me to take my jealousy somewhere else. She left me alone outside and went back in to dance with Darren, all while I just sobbed nonstop. That single moment hurt more than anything Darren ever did to me. The rest of the night between us was extremely tense. We barely glanced at each other. What made it worse is that I think Darren knew I had told Kathy something, because he kept flashing this "oh you fucked up" smile at me. I left the wedding early, and throughout their honeymoon I was panicking. I was worried for Kathy's safety, but what I didn't realize was that it wasn't Kathy I should have worried about. It was me, because Darren never loved Kathy. Turns out, he had come back for me. And what he did next made that painfully clear. Because last Tuesday I got an email from Kathy. Subject line, exciting news. They decided to extend their honeymoon and were coming to visit me. They'd already booked tickets. They'd be arriving next month and staying for 2 weeks. I immediately threw up again. The thought of Darren in my space, my safe place, made me physically ill. I called my boss asking about temporary transfers to other offices, but got shut down because we're short-staffed. I considered subletting my apartment and just disappearing for a while, but my lease doesn't allow it. I started looking at hotels, thinking maybe I could just stay somewhere else while they visited, but that felt like running away, again. And I promised myself after Darren that I would never let anyone make me feel like I needed to run again. That promise had been my anchor through years of healing and rebuilding. So I did the only thing I could think of. I installed security cameras all over my apartment. Outside the door, in the living room, hallway, everywhere except the bathroom. Changed all my locks, bought new pepper spray, told the building security about a stalker situation so they'd be on alert. I was careful to explain that this person was dangerous and might try to impersonate family to gain access. I specifically instructed that no one should be let into my apartment without my explicit approval, regardless of who they claimed to be. I memorized emergency numbers and escape routes, planning for every possible scenario I could imagine. I thought I was being paranoid, over-preparing. Then yesterday, I got a text from an unknown number, just a photo, of me, walking into my building after work, taken that same day. I blocked the number immediately. An hour later, another unknown number texted, another photo, me at the coffee shop across from my office, from that morning. He's already here. Somehow he's already here, watching me. The realization hit me like a physical blow, leaving me breathless and disoriented. I spent last night at my friend Maya's apartment, told her I had a plumbing issue, didn't sleep at all, kept checking my phone, waiting for more messages. Nothing came. Every creak of the building, every distant siren had me sitting bolt upright, heart racing. This morning I went back to my apartment to grab clothes for work, found something that made my blood run cold, a small electronic device tucked into the lamp by my bed, a listening device, in my bedroom. The violation of my private space felt like another form of assault. I smashed it immediately, then tore my apartment apart looking for others. Found 2 more, one behind the TV, another under the kitchen table. I destroyed them all, packed a bag, and went straight back to Maya's. My hands wouldn't stop shaking as I threw random clothes into my suitcase, not even checking what I was packing. I'm writing this from her guest room. I've been staying here for 4 days now. Maya knows something's wrong but doesn't know what exactly. I don't want to drag her into this mess, but I can't be alone right now. Maya has always been there for me, bringing me coffee in silence and giving me space without questions. I keep asking myself how this is happening. How did he find me? How did he find Kathy? Was this his plan all along? To worm his way into my family so he could get to me again? The methodical nature of it all terrifies me more than random violence ever could. The worst part is I have no proof it's him sending the photos or planting the devices. Nothing I could take to the police. Just my word against his. And we all know how that turned out with Kathy. Law enforcement had failed me before. Why would now be any different? I feel like I'm losing my mind. Like I'm back in that relationship where I questioned everything. My perceptions, my memories, my worth. The control he had over me then is creeping back, and I don't know how to stop it. That familiar fog is settling in, making me doubt myself in ways I thought I'd overcome. Kathy called earlier. Said they're arriving next week instead of next month. Changed their plans. Can't wait to see me. I made up some excuse about a work conference, but she insisted they'd just hang out at my place while I'm working. The thought of them waiting for me, of coming home to find him there, makes my skin crawl. The thought of them in my apartment, him touching my things, sleeping in my bed. I'm literally shaking as I type this. This space I've created for myself. This refuge thousands of miles from my past, now contaminated by his presence. I don't know what to do. Call the police with no evidence? Try to convince Kathy again when she clearly doesn't believe me? Move to another country? None of these seem like real options. I feel cornered, trapped in an impossible situation with no clear escape. So I'm asking you, Reddit, what would you do? How do I protect myself and my sister from someone who's already beaten the system? Someone who's now legally part of my family? I survived him once. I'm not sure I can do it again. Update, just got another text. A photo of me sitting at Maya's window right now. The message just says, found you. I'm going to throw up again. I almost dropped my phone when I saw that message. Found you. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely show Maya. Her face went pale when she saw it. This wasn't some random creep or coincidence anymore. This was Darren, methodically hunting me down like some sick game. We need to call the police, Maya said, already reaching for her phone. I grabbed her wrist. And tell them what? That my sister's new husband is sending me photos? That I think he bugged my apartment but I destroyed all the evidence? They'll think I'm crazy. Maya's apartment suddenly felt exposed with all its windows. I kept seeing shadows move across the street, wondering if each passerby was him. We closed all the blinds and double-checked the locks. Maya insisted I take her bedroom since it had fewer windows and was farther from the front door. I couldn't sleep anyway, so I just lay there staring at the ceiling, jumping at every noise from the street below. Around 3 a.m. my phone buzzed again. Another unknown number. I almost didn't look. But what if it was important? What if it was Kathy? It wasn't. Just 3 words. Sweet dreams, Casey. I deleted it immediately and turned my phone off. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. How did he get all these different numbers? How was he always one step ahead? The next morning, I called in sick to work. Couldn't risk going out where he could follow me. Maya offered to stay home too, but I insisted she go. No point in both of us missing work. As soon as she left, I started researching. Looked up stalking laws, restraining orders, anything that might help. Most required evidence of explicit threats, or multiple documented incidents. I had some photos and texts from unknown numbers. Nothing concrete tying them to Darren. I created a new email account and started documenting everything. Dates, times, what happened, how it made me feel. I took screenshots of the text before deleting them. It wasn't much, but it was something. A paper trail. A reality check for when I started doubting myself. Then I called James, my oldest friend from back home. If anyone would believe me without question, it would be him. He'd seen the aftermath of what Darren did to me 8 years ago. Had helped me move cities when I was too terrified to stay. Jesus Christ, he said after I explained everything. This guy is seriously deranged. What do I do, James? He's coming here next week with Kathy. James was quiet for a moment. You can't face this alone. Can you come stay with me for a while? He's already tracking me, and I can't just leave my job, my apartment, everything I've built here. Then I'm coming to you, he said firmly. I felt a rush of relief followed immediately by panic. No, he might hurt you too. He's dangerous, James. We talked for nearly 2 hours, going through options that all seemed impossible. James finally suggested something I hadn't considered, confronting Darren directly in a public place. The idea made my stomach turn, but maybe if I met him on my terms, in daylight, with people around, I decided to try it. I texted Kathy asking when exactly they were arriving and suggested meeting for coffee their first day here, somewhere public. She responded almost immediately, saying they'd already landed early that morning. They were at my apartment now, waiting for me. My blood went cold. They weren't supposed to be here for another week. I checked the date on my phone, wondering if I'd somehow lost track of time. No, they'd definitely changed their plans without telling me. Or Kathy had told me and Darren had intercepted the message somehow. I called her immediately. Hey, I thought you weren't coming until next week. We told you we changed our plans, she said, sounding confused. I texted you 3 days ago about it. I never got that text. I'd been staying at Maya's and avoiding checking my phone much due to anxiety every time it buzzed. I'd been so focused on the threatening messages that I must have missed Kathy's legitimate text, among all the notifications I was trying to ignore. I'm sorry, must have missed it with work being so crazy. I lied. I'm actually staying at a friend's right now. Plumbing issues in my building. Oh no. Well, we're at your apartment. The super let us in when we explained we were family. I felt a surge of anger. After my specific instructions to building security about my stalker situation, the super had still let them in. He must have been charmed by Darren's smooth talking or simply didn't take my warnings seriously. I'll come meet you for lunch, I suggested, trying to keep my voice steady. There's a cafe about 2 blocks from my building. Very popular spot. We arranged to meet in an hour. Maya was still at work, so I couldn't even tell her what was happening. I took a quick shower, trying to wash away the fear and exhaustion. Looking in the mirror, I barely recognized myself. Dark circles under my eyes, skin pale, expression haunted. I applied some makeup, trying to look normal. The last thing I needed was Kathy commenting on how unwell I seemed. I picked the cafe carefully. Always crowded, tables close together, staff who knew me as a regular. I arrived 20 minutes early and chose a table with my back to the wall, facing the entrance. Ordered a coffee I couldn't drink, my stomach too knotted to handle caffeine. When they walked in, I almost bolted. Seeing Darren in his element, confident, charming, his arm around my sister, made me physically ill. He looked exactly the same as he had 8 years ago, maybe a little more filled out, hairstyled differently. But those eyes, those cold, calculating eyes hadn't changed at all. Kathy spotted me and waved excitedly, pulling Darren toward my table. I stood on shaky legs, accepting her hug with stiff arms. Then Darren was there, pulling me into an embrace before I could avoid it. So good to finally meet my sister-in-law properly, he said loudly enough for nearby tables to hear. But against my ear, he whispered, "Miss me?" I pulled away quickly, nearly knocking over my coffee. A waitress appeared to take their orders, giving me a moment to compose myself. I sat with my hands under the table so they wouldn't see them shaking. Kathy dominated the conversation, talking about their wedding, their honeymoon, how beautiful my city was. I nodded and smiled mechanically, hyper-aware of Darren watching me. He kept touching Kathy, her hand, her shoulder, her hair, making sure I saw each casual display of affection, marking his territory. "Your apartment is gorgeous," Kathy said, though I was surprised by all the security cameras. "Are you having problems with break-ins around here?" So they'd noticed those. I wondered if Darren had already disabled them. "Just being cautious," I said, eyes flicking to Darren. "Never know who might try to get in." His smile didn't falter, but something flashed behind his eyes. Challenge accepted. The lunch continued with excruciating small talk. Kathy seemed oblivious to the tension, happily chatting away while I sat there calculating distances to exits, wondering if screaming would actually make anyone help or just label me as crazy. As we were finishing, Darren excused himself to use the restroom. The moment he was gone, I grabbed Kathy's hand. "You need to listen to me," I said urgently. "I wasn't lying about Darren. He's dangerous. He's been stalking me, sending me photos, bugging my apartment." Kathy's face hardened. "Stop it, Casey. Just stop. I don't know what your problem is, but this has to end. Darren told me you might do this." I froze. "He what?" "He told me you had some kind of obsession with him years ago, that you couldn't accept when he broke things off and started spreading rumors about him being abusive." My jaw dropped. He'd preemptively poisoned her against me, set up the perfect defense. "That's not what happened," I insisted, desperation making my voice crack. "Why would I make this up? Why would I?" "Because you've always been like this," she interrupted, louder than she probably intended. A few nearby diners glanced our way. She lowered her voice. "Always dramatic, always needing attention, always making everything about you." The accusation hit like a slap. Was that really how she saw me? How my family saw me? "That's what he wants you to think," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "That's how abusers work. They isolate you from people who might see the truth. The only truth I see is that my sister is trying to ruin my marriage before it's even begun." Darren returned then, all smiles, asking what he'd missed. The look Kathy gave me made it clear the conversation was over. I mumbled something about needing to get back to Maya's to get ready for work tomorrow. Made up some excuse about her cats and my allergies, meaning they couldn't stay with me. "Such a shame," Darren said. "We were looking forward to quality time together." The way he emphasized quality time made my skin crawl. I managed to escape without him touching me again, promising to meet them for dinner tomorrow night. As soon as I turned the corner out of sight of the cafe, I broke into a run all the way back to Maya's. I half expected to find him somehow already there, waiting, but the apartment was empty. Maya returned from work to find me pacing her living room, chewing my nails down to the quick, a habit I'd broken years ago after leaving Darren. "They're here already," I told her. "In my apartment. He's convinced Kathy I'm some delusional ex who made up abuse allegations." Maya sat me down, made me drink some water, and actually listened, unlike my sister, unlike the police would. She believed me without question, and that simple act of faith nearly broke me. "You're staying here as long as you need," she said firmly, "and we're going to figure this out." That night, I got another text. A photo of me entering Maya's building after lunch, then another of Maya arriving home from work. The message read, "Nice friend. Would hate for anything to happen to her." I showed Maya, expecting her to freak out. Instead, she got angry. Not scared. Angry. Called him a pathetic coward hiding behind text messages. Her righteous fury was somehow exactly what I needed. It reminded me that this wasn't normal, that I wasn't crazy for being terrified. We spent that night developing a plan. First, I'd try reasoning with Darren directly, meet him somewhere public, record the conversation secretly, try to get him to admit what he was doing. Maya would be nearby as backup. If that didn't work, we'd try again with Kathy, showing her concrete evidence if we could get it. And if all else failed, we'd go to the police with whatever we had, no matter how circumstantial. The next day at work was torture. I kept seeing him everywhere, in the reflection of windows, in crowds on the street, behind me in the elevator. Every time my phone buzzed with an email, my heart stopped. My boss noticed something was wrong and called me into her office. I was sure I was going to be fired for my obvious distraction. Instead, she asked if I was okay, really looked at me with genuine concern. Something about her grandmotherly kindness broke through my defenses, and before I knew it, I was telling her everything. Not the messy details, just that my sister had married my abusive ex, and now they were in town, and I was scared. I expected skepticism or awkward platitudes. Instead, she immediately offered me a week of personal leave. When I hesitated, concerned about the short staffing, she said, "Your safety matters more than any project deadline." It was such a simple statement of fact, but it hit me hard. My safety mattered. I mattered. After years of Darren making me feel worthless, after Kathy dismissing my fear as attention-seeking, here was this woman I barely knew outside of work treating my well-being as an obvious priority. I accepted the leave but asked to finish the day to wrap up some projects. As I was leaving that evening, my boss walked me to my car and waited until I drove away. Such a small gesture of protection, but it meant everything. I arranged to meet Darren at a cafe near my office the next day. Told him I wanted to clear the air, just the two of us. I suggested a time when Kathy would be at a spa appointment she'd mentioned during lunch. He agreed almost too eagerly. Maya and I prepared carefully. I wore a button-up shirt with a small recording device hidden in the front pocket. Maya would sit nearby, pretending to work on her laptop. We arrived early, securing a table in the corner with a clear view of the entrance. Darren showed up exactly on time, looking perfectly put together in a casual button-down and designer jeans. He smiled as he approached, and for a split second, I remembered why I'd fallen for him in the first place, before I knew what he really was. "Casey," he said warmly, sitting down across from me. "I was hoping we'd get a chance to talk privately." "I bet you were," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "What's your game here, Darren? Why Kathy? Why now?" He looked genuinely confused. "Game? I fell in love with an amazing woman who happens to be your sister. Simple as that." "Bullshit. The texts? The photos? The bugs in my apartment? You expect me to believe that's coincidence?" His expression didn't change, but he leaned forward slightly. "I have no idea what you're talking about. Sounds like you're having some issues, Casey. Maybe you should talk to someone about that." Classic gaslighting. I'd expected it, but it still made my blood boil. "Cut the crap," I hissed. "I know it's you. What I don't know is why. Revenge? Some sick power trip? Or did you just miss having someone to torture?" He sighed, looking around as if concerned someone might overhear. Then he pulled out his phone, tapped something, and set it on the table. "What are you doing?" I asked, suddenly nervous. "Recording our conversation," he said calmly. "For my protection. You seem quite unstable, making wild accusations." My heart sank. He was creating evidence against me. Anything I said could be edited, manipulated, used to make me look delusional, just like he'd convinced Kathy I was. "You haven't changed at all," I managed to say. "Still the same manipulative monster." He smiled then, a cold smile that didn't reach his eyes. "And you're still so easy to rattle. Always were." He picked up his phone, stopped the recording, and stood up. "I think we're done here. I'd appreciate if you'd keep your delusions away from my wife. She's worried about you, you know. We both are." I watched him walk away, defeat washing over me. The recording device felt heavy in my pocket, useless. He'd outplayed me, again. I looked over at Maya, who seemed to understand immediately that things hadn't gone as planned. Back at her apartment, I reviewed the recording. As expected, it captured nothing incriminating, just Darren sounding concerned while I made accusations. Maya suggested we try a different approach. Investigation. If Darren had targeted Kathy deliberately to get to me, there might be evidence of planning. I started with the mutual friend who had introduced them. Kathy had mentioned the name once, Thomas, but said they weren't close. I found him through her Facebook friends and sent a message explaining I wanted to surprise Kathy with something special from the friend who'd introduced them. Thomas responded quickly, seeming confused. Said he barely knew Darren, had only met him once at a work function. Darren had approached him, mentioned he was new in town, and asked to be introduced to some local people. Thomas had invited him to a dinner party where Kathy was present. That was it. Maya and I looked at each other. If Thomas was telling the truth, this supported my theory that Darren had targeted Kathy deliberately. But it wasn't proof of anything sinister, just a guy asking to be introduced to people in a new city. I needed more. I hesitantly messaged a couple of Kathy's other friends, asking casual questions about how they remembered Kathy and Darren getting together. Most responses aligned with Thomas's story. Darren had appeared seemingly from nowhere, pursued Kathy intensely, and proposed quickly. One friend, Jennifer, mentioned something interesting. Apparently Darren had asked a lot of questions about Kathy's family early on, particularly about me, where I was living, what I was doing, if I was seeing anyone. Kathy had thought it was sweet that he was so interested in getting to know her family. "That's it," Maya said. "He was fishing for information about you." It certainly seemed that way. But again, not proof of anything illegal, just creepy and calculating. The next few days fell into an uncomfortable pattern. I'd meet Kathy and Darren for meals or sightseeing, maintaining a strained politeness. Darren was always the perfect gentleman in public, but would find moments to brush against me or whisper comments when Kathy wasn't looking. Nothing obviously threatening, just enough to keep me on edge. Reminders that he was in control. Kathy remained oblivious, though I caught her giving me concerned looks when she thought I wasn't watching. I wondered what Darren was telling her about me when they were alone, what poison he was dripping into her ear. We had dinner at their hotel restaurant on their 5th night in town. I'd been careful to suggest only public places for our meetings, avoiding anywhere private. But halfway through the meal, Darren deliberately knocked over his wine glass, splashing red wine across my white blouse. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry," he exclaimed, looking genuinely distressed. "Casey, the bathroom is just down that hallway. Kathy, give her your stain remover pen." Before I could object, Kathy was handing me her purse and urging me to hurry before the stain set. I hesitated, not wanting to leave the public space of the restaurant. "Go on," Darren insisted. "I'll order you another drink while you clean up." The bathroom was at the end of a long hallway, away from the main restaurant. I hurried, planning to be as quick as possible. But as I was dabbing at the stain, the bathroom door opened. Darren stepped in, locked the door behind him, and leaned against it. My heart nearly stopped. We were alone, really alone, for the first time in 8 years. I backed up until I hit the wall, trying to put as much distance between us as possible. "What do you want?" I managed to ask. my voice stronger than I expected. He studied me for a moment, head tilted slightly. You know, I've thought about this moment for years. What I'd say when I finally had you alone again. Stay back, I warned, reaching into my purse for my pepper spray. I'll scream. He pulled out his phone, showing me he was recording. Go ahead. Scream. Attack me. I'll just show everyone how my mentally unstable sister-in-law assaulted me when I came to check if she needed help. My hand fell away from my purse. He was right. Anything I did would be twisted against me, just like before, just like always. Why are you doing this? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. It's been 8 years. Why can't you just leave me alone? 8 years, 2 months, and 16 days, he corrected, taking a step closer. Did you really think I'd just forget you? That I'd let you walk away without consequences? The casual way he recited the exact time since I'd left him sent ice through my veins. He'd been counting the days. So that's what this is? Revenge? You married my sister to get back at me? He laughed, a sound that used to make my stomach flutter but now made it turn. Initially, yes. Finding you wasn't easy, you know. You covered your tracks well. But then I remembered your sister. How you were always talking about her. Always trying to protect her. His smile widened. Ironic, isn't it? You're sick, I spat. Kathy doesn't deserve to be used like this. Here's the interesting part, he continued as if I hadn't spoken. I actually like Kathy. She's sweet, uncomplicated, appreciative of everything I do for her. Not like you, always questioning, always fighting. The way he talked about her, like she was a pet who behaved well, made me want to throw up. If you hurt her, you'll what? He interrupted, taking another step closer. Now he was just arm's length away. Run to the police with your wild stories? Tell your parents? We both know how well that worked out at the wedding. He reached out suddenly, brushing his fingers against my cheek. I flinched away, but there was nowhere to go with the wall at my back. You'll always be my favorite, though, he murmured. No one reacts quite like you do. No one breaks quite so beautifully. A knock on the door made us both freeze. Hello? Is someone in there? A woman's voice called. Darren's expression darkened for just a second before he composed himself. Think about what I said, he whispered, then unlocked the door and stepped out, saying loudly, all yours, ma'am. Just checking if my sister-in-law needed help with a wine stain. I stayed in that bathroom long after he left, hands braced on the sink, trying to stop shaking. His words kept echoing in my head. You'll always be my favorite. The possessiveness in his voice, the absolute certainty that I still belonged to him somehow. When I finally returned to the table, Kathy looked worried. Everything okay? You were gone a while. Fine, I said automatically. Stain was stubborn. Darren smiled at me across the table, raising his fresh glass of wine in a small toast only I would notice. I couldn't eat another bite after that, just pushed food around my plate until we finally left. That night, I told Maya everything. She wanted to go straight to the police, but what would we say? That my brother-in-law said some creepy things to me in a bathroom? That he touched my face? None of it was illegal, just terrifying in context. The next day, I decided to try a different approach with Kathy. I invited her for lunch, just the two of us. Said I wanted some sister time before they left. To my surprise, she agreed readily. I was careful this time, avoiding direct accusations against Darren. Instead, I asked casual questions about how they met, letting her talk. As she told the story of Thomas introducing them at a dinner party, I noticed small inconsistencies with what Thomas had told me. According to Kathy, Darren had specifically asked to meet her after seeing her photo at Thomas's place, but Thomas had said the introduction was coincidental. It's funny, I said carefully. I was chatting with Thomas recently. He didn't remember introducing you two intentionally. Kathy frowned. What? Why were you talking to Thomas about us? I realized my mistake too late. I wanted to get to know more about Darren, since I missed the whole dating period. So, you've been checking up on him? Interrogating my friends behind my back? Her voice rose slightly, attracting glances from nearby tables. It's not like that, I insisted. I'm just trying to understand. No, you're trying to find something wrong. You can't just be happy for me, can you? She stood up abruptly. Darren was right. He said you might do something like this. Of course he did. He was always one step ahead. Kathy, please. I'm done with this conversation, she said firmly. I'm going back to the hotel. Don't follow me. I watched her storm out, feeling helpless. Darren had positioned himself perfectly, predicting my every move and poisoning Kathy against me before I could even make it. The wall between my sister and me was growing higher by the day. Back at Maya's, I collapsed on the couch, exhausted. Every attempt to protect Kathy or expose Darren just seemed to drive her further away and give him more ammunition. I felt like I was playing chess against a master while blindfolded. My phone buzzed with a text from James. He'd been checking in daily, and I'd been keeping him updated. His message was simple. Anything on his previous relationships? Pattern of behavior equals stronger case. It was a good point. If Darren had done this to me, chances were he'd done it to others. I'd been so focused on his relationship with Kathy that I hadn't thought to look backward. I spent the next few hours scrolling through social media, trying to trace Darren's past relationships. It wasn't easy. He had minimal online presence, and what existed was carefully curated. Eventually, I found a woman named Patricia, who had posted vague but pointed comments on older photos, where she was tagged with Darren. Things like, some memories are better forgotten, and true colors always show eventually. I took a chance and messaged her, explaining who I was, and asking if she'd be willing to talk about Darren. To my surprise, she responded almost immediately, offering her phone number. When I called, Patricia was initially cautious, but as soon as I mentioned my situation, that Darren had married my sister after dating me years ago, she opened up. He did the same thing to me and my cousin, she said, her voice tight with old anger. Dated me for about a year, was charming at first but got controlling and then violent. When I finally left him, he somehow engineered meeting my cousin at a gym. Started dating her. I tried to warn her, but she trailed off. She didn't believe you, I finished. Worse, she believed him when he said I was making it all up because I was jealous. We didn't speak for over a year because of him. It was eerie how similar her story was to mine. What happened in the end? Patricia was quiet for a moment. He hurt her worse than he hurt me. Put her in the hospital. That's when she finally believed me. My blood ran cold. Did you go to the police? We tried. He had alibis, manipulated evidence, made my cousin sound unstable. Charges were eventually dropped. She sounded tired, the way people do when they've fought a long battle and lost. We got a restraining order, but that was it. Last I heard, he moved to another state. After we hung up, I sat in stunned silence. Then I started searching more deliberately, using terms like Darren Thomas abuse and Darren Thomas restraining order. I found 2 more women who had shared stories in support groups or local news comments, though they didn't use his full name. The pattern was identical: charm, isolation, violence, escape. Then he'd target someone connected to them. It was methodical, deliberate, and absolutely terrifying. I didn't sleep that night, just kept researching, documenting, building a case. By morning, I had a digital folder full of screenshots, dates, patterns, and 3 women willing to speak about their experiences if needed. But would it be enough? Kathy was already suspicious of my motives. Darren had already established me as jealous and unstable. How could I present this evidence without it seeming like exactly what he predicted I would do? As I was wondering this, a text came from Kathy. After our argument yesterday, I hadn't expected to hear from her so soon. Can we talk? Alone? Hotel lobby? 10 a.m.? A flicker of hope sparked in my chest. Maybe she'd been thinking about our conversation. Maybe something I said had gotten through. I quickly replied that I'd be there, then spent the next hour trying to decide what evidence to bring, what to say, how to approach this opportunity. Maya urged caution. It could be a trap. Darren might have sent that text. She had a point, but I had to try. I arrived at the hotel early, chose a seat with a clear view of all entrances, and waited. At exactly 10 a.m., Kathy appeared, alone. She looked tired, with dark circles under her eyes partly hidden by makeup. Thanks for coming, she said quietly, sitting across from me. Of course. I resisted the urge to launch immediately into all my evidence. Is everything okay? She glanced around nervously before answering. I don't know. Darren and we had a fight last night, after I told him about our lunch. My heart rate picked up. What kind of fight? She rubbed her wrist absently, and for the first time, I noticed what looked like the edge of a bruise disappearing under her bracelet. He got really angry, said you were trying to come between us, that you've always been jealous of what we have. I wanted to scream that what they had was a complete fabrication, but I held my tongue. Did he hurt you, Kathy? Her eyes darted up to mine, then away. No, he just grabbed my arm a little too hard. He was upset. Classic minimization. I'd done the same thing countless times. Kathy, I said gently, that's not okay. No matter how upset someone is, they don't have the right to hurt you. It's not like that, she insisted. It was just one time. He apologized right away. It was like hearing my own words from 8 years ago. The same excuses, the same desperate belief that it was just a one-time thing, that it wouldn't happen again. Can I show you something? I asked carefully. She hesitated, then nodded. I pulled out my phone and showed her a photo I'd kept all these years, a picture of my arm, covered in finger-shaped bruises. This was after Darren just grabbed me a little too hard the first time. He apologized right away too. Her eyes widened. That could be anything. Anyone. I have more, I said quietly. And not just from me, from other women. Patricia, Susan, Ashley, all with the same story, all connected to each other somehow. Kathy's face paled. You're making this up. You have to be. I wish I was, I said, feeling an overwhelming sadness. But deep down, I think you know I'm not. That's why you texted me today, isn't it? Because something felt wrong. She stared at me for a long moment, conflict clear in her eyes. Then she looked down at her wrist again, slowly pushing her bracelet back to reveal the full bruise, a distinct handprint wrapped around her delicate wrist. He said it wouldn't happen again, she whispered. He always says that, I replied gently, to all of us. For the first time since the wedding, I saw a crack in her certainty, a flicker of doubt. It wasn't much, but it was something, a start. What do I do? She asked, her voice small. First, you don't go back to that hotel room alone, I said firmly. You come with me right now. We'll figure out the rest together. She looked torn, glancing toward the elevators. My things. I need my passport, my clothes. We can sort that out. Your safety is what matters right now. Just as I thought she was about to agree, her phone buzzed. She looked down at it, and the color drained from her face again. It's Darren. He's in the lobby. He says he can see us. I whipped my head around, scanning the hotel lobby with my heart in my throat. There he was, lounging by the reception desk, staring directly at us with that smug little smile I'd grown to hate. My entire body went rigid. Don't look, I whispered to Kathy. Just get up and walk with me toward the front doors. Act normal. She nodded almost imperceptibly, gathering her purse with shaking hands. We stood up casually, like we were just 2 sisters finishing a coffee date. I linked my arm through Kathy's, partly for comfort but mostly so she couldn't bolt. The exit was maybe 30 steps away. Casey, Darren's voice rang out across the lobby. People turned to look. Damn it. Classic manipulation. Making a scene in public so we couldn't ignore him without looking like the crazy ones. Keep walking, I murmured, but Kathy had already frozen. I could feel her trembling against me. Darren strode toward us, all charming smiles for the onlookers. Honey, there you are. I've been looking everywhere. He reached for Kathy's arm, the same one with the bruises, and I instinctively stepped between them. We're just heading out for some sister time, I said loudly enough for nearby people to hear. Shopping, you know, girl stuff. His eyes hardened for a microsecond before the mask slipped back into place. Actually, we have that lunch reservation, remember? With my business associates? Kathy looked down. I forgot. No problem, sweetheart. He reached around me to grab her hand. We should head up so you can change. I could see it happening in real time. Kathy retreating back into herself, the brief moment of clarity fading. I was losing her again. Actually, I blurted out, Kathy's not feeling well. Migraine. She mentioned it earlier. Right, Kath? She looked at me, then at Darren, clearly trapped between us. Is that true? Darren asked, his voice dripping with concern while his eyes remained cold. After what felt like forever, Kathy nodded. I do have a headache. Then I'll take care of you upstairs, Darren insisted, his grip on her hand tightening visibly. Women's problems too, I added quickly. She needs her sister right now. You understand? I could see him calculating, aware of the people watching this exchange. He couldn't make a scene without exposing himself. Fine, he said finally. I'll reschedule lunch. Text me when you're done with your sister time. The way he said it made it sound dirty. We will, I promised, already pulling Kathy toward the exit. Once outside, I practically dragged her to the taxi stand. We climbed into the first available cab, and I gave Maya's address. Only when we were moving did I let myself breathe. He's going to be so angry, Kathy whispered, staring back at the hotel as it receded behind us. But he can't hurt you if you're not there, I pointed out. She rubbed her wrist again. You don't understand. He'll find me. He always does. The defeated certainty in her voice hit me hard. I'd felt that same hopeless inevitability many times. Not this time, I promised. This time you have me, and Maya, and evidence. At Maya's apartment, Kathy finally broke down completely. She sobbed on Maya's couch while I made tea, and Maya discreetly activated her home security system. Between tears, Kathy admitted things had been getting worse. The controlling behavior started on their honeymoon, checking her phone, criticizing her clothes, monitoring who she talked to. The first physical incident happened just 3 days ago. He got mad when I spent too long on the phone with Mom, she hiccuped. Said I was ignoring him. I wanted to say, I told you so, but bit my tongue. Instead, I showed her everything I'd gathered. The testimonies from Patricia and the others, the pattern of behavior, the photos documenting my own abuse 8 years ago. Kathy stared at the evidence, her eyes moving from one photo to another, her hands trembling as she read Patricia's account. I could see her struggling internally. The Darren she thought she knew versus the monster revealed in these documents. She picked up a particularly graphic photo of my bruised ribs from 8 years ago. I thought, she began, voice breaking. I thought he was perfect. He was so kind to me, so attentive. Her breath hitched. But last night, when he got angry, I saw something different in his eyes. Something cold. Something familiar, though I couldn't place it. She looked up at me. It was the same look you described at the wedding, wasn't it? I nodded slowly. That's how he operates. 2 different people. The charming one everyone sees, and the real one only his victims know. What have I done? She whispered, tears streaming down her face. I married him. I chose him over my own sister. He's a master manipulator, I said. We've all fallen for it. Even the police. Just then, Kathy's phone exploded with texts. Darren, of course, alternating between concerned messages asking if she was okay and increasingly angry demands to know where she was. Classic abuser whiplash. Turn it off, Maya suggested. Or better yet, let me see it. Kathy handed over her phone. Maya took out the SIM card, then powered the phone back on. We can keep this for evidence, but he can't track it now. Smart girl, my Maya. We spent the next few hours developing a plan. Kathy would stay with Maya while I went back to my apartment to grab essential items. Then we'd all relocate to James's place across town, somewhere Darren wouldn't think to look. From there, we'd contact a lawyer to start divorce proceedings and file for a more substantial restraining order. He'll contest everything, Kathy said miserably. Drag it out forever. Let him try, I replied. We have evidence now. Real evidence. I left them at Maya's and took a circuitous route to my apartment, constantly checking to make sure I wasn't being followed. My building looked normal, quiet. The security guard nodded as I entered. Everything okay, miss? Your brother-in-law was looking for you earlier. My stomach dropped. When? About an hour ago. Said he needed to drop something off for you. I told him you weren't home. At least the guard hadn't let him in. I thanked him and hurried to my apartment, unlocking the 3 new locks I'd installed. The place looked untouched, but I didn't trust appearances anymore. I did a quick sweep for new listening devices, then threw essential clothes and documents into a backpack. As I was grabbing my passport from the desk drawer, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost ignored it, but my gut said to answer. Hello? Casey. Darren's voice sent ice through my veins. Where's my wife? I don't know what you're talking about, I lied, continuing to pack one-handed. Don't play dumb. I saw you leave with her. Where is she? Safe from you, I snapped, abandoning pretense. And she's going to stay that way. He laughed, that cold laugh that used to terrify me. You always were a fighter, Casey. It's what I liked about you. Breaking you was so much more satisfying. You failed, I said, surprised by my own steadiness. You didn't break me then, and you won't break Kathy now. We'll see about that. His voice hardened. I want my wife back within the hour, or I'll go to the police and report her missing. I'll tell them her mentally unstable sister has taken her. I have quite a collection of your unhinged texts and emails to show them. You mean the ones you fabricated? Go ahead. We have real evidence. Evidence of what? A husband who grabbed his wife's arm during an argument versus a jealous sister with a history of delusions about me? Who do you think they'll believe? He had a point. Even with Patricia's testimony and my documentation, it would be an uphill battle in court. 1 hour, he repeated, or things get very ugly for both of you. He hung up. I finished packing quickly, my mind racing. We needed to move fast. I called Maya as I left my apartment, taking the back stairs instead of the elevator. Change of plans, I said as soon as she answered. Darren's threatening to go to the police. We need to get to James's now. Okay, Kathy's in the shower. We'll be ready in 10. I hailed a cab, still watching for any sign of Darren. The drive to Maya's felt endless. Every red light an eternity. When we finally arrived, I threw money at the driver and ran up to her apartment. Maya answered my frantic knocking with a worried face. Kathy's gone. What? How? She got a text while you were gone. Said it was from her friend Jennifer, but I think it was actually Darren. She seemed upset, went to make a call in the bedroom. When I checked on her, the bathroom window was open and she was gone. I sank onto the couch, defeated. He got to her again, probably threatened her, or me. Maya sat beside me. Now what? I stared at the blank wall, thinking. The hotel. He'll take her back there. It's the only place he has full control. Calling the police still felt futile without Kathy being willing to press charges. We needed more. something irrefutable. Then I remembered, my hidden phone. The one I'd slipped into Kathy's bag when she first went back to Darren. It was a small prepaid phone I'd tucked into an inner zippered pocket of her purse, while helping her look for her lipstick that first day she arrived. Darren would never notice it. Kathy's oversized bag had dozens of compartments, and he wasn't the type to rifle through her personal items where others might see. I grabbed Maya's laptop and logged into my tracking app. After an agonizing minute, a small blue dot appeared on the map. The phone was active, and it was at the hotel. She's there, I confirmed. Now we just need a way to get her out without Darren stopping us. Maya thought for a moment. What about your parents? Darren can't exactly keep Kathy from them without looking suspicious. It was risky bringing my parents into this mess, but Maya was right. Darren had carefully cultivated his image with them. He couldn't refuse if they showed up wanting to see their daughter. I made the call, bracing myself for disbelief. To my surprise, my parents listened. Really listened. Maybe it was the desperation in my voice, or maybe they'd seen signs themselves but dismissed them. Either way, they agreed to help. We'll be on the next flight, Dad said firmly. Text us the hotel details. While waiting for my parents to arrive, Maya and I strategized. We called Patricia and the other women, who agreed to submit formal statements to our lawyer. We gathered all our evidence into organized files, and we kept watching the tracking dot, making sure Kathy stayed at the hotel. My parents landed 6 hours later. I met them at the airport, relieved beyond words to have reinforcements. Mom hugged me tight, whispering apologies for not believing me sooner. Dad looked grimmer than I'd ever seen him, his jaw set in a way that reminded me he'd once been a college boxer. We went straight to the hotel. The four of us, Mom, Dad, Maya, and I, marched through the lobby like an invading army. The receptionist recognized me and frowned. We're here to see our daughter and son-in-law, Dad announced in his no-nonsense voice. Room 718. I'll need to call up first, the receptionist began. No need, Dad interrupted. We'll surprise them. He headed for the elevator without waiting for permission, the rest of us trailing behind. At room 718, Mom knocked firmly. We heard movement inside, then Darren opened the door, his surprise quickly masked by a welcoming smile. Mom, Dad, what a wonderful surprise. Mom pushed past him without a word. Where's Kathy? Darren's smile faltered. She's resting. Migraine. I want to see her, Mom insisted, already moving toward the bedroom. Darren stepped in her path. She really shouldn't be disturbed. Dad placed a heavy hand on Darren's shoulder. Son, I think you should sit down. We need to talk. The look that flashed across Darren's face was one I knew well, rage barely contained. But he couldn't show that to my parents, not if he wanted to maintain his perfect son-in-law facade. While Dad kept Darren occupied in the living area of the suite, Mom, Maya, and I found Kathy curled up on the bed. She wasn't sleeping. Her eyes were red and puffy from crying. When she saw us, she shrank back, then launched herself into Mom's arms. I'm so sorry, she sobbed. He said he'd hurt Casey if I didn't come back. He showed me pictures of her apartment, said he could get to her anytime. It's okay, Mom soothed, stroking her hair. We're all here now. We're taking you home. In the living room, Dad had Darren cornered on the couch, showing him printouts of the evidence we'd gathered. Darren's face was a mask of indignation. These are obviously fabricated, he was saying as we entered. Casey has always been unstable, jealous of my relationship with Kathy. Save it, Dad cut him off. We've heard from Patricia, and Susan, and the others. Darren's eyes darted to me with pure hatred, then back to Dad with practiced concern. I don't know who these women are. This is clearly some kind of coordinated attack on my character. We're leaving, Mom announced, her arm firmly around Kathy. All of us, including my daughter. Darren stood up. Kathy is my wife. She's not going anywhere. Yes, I am, Kathy said quietly. It was the first time she directly contradicted him in front of others. I felt a surge of pride. Darren's mask slipped. You ungrateful bitch! He lunged toward her, and several things happened at once. Dad stepped between them. Maya pulled out her phone and started recording. Mom pulled Kathy behind her, and I'd been preparing for this moment for 8 years. I pressed the panic button on my phone that automatically dialed 911 and started recording. Don't touch my daughter, Dad warned, his voice deadly calm. Darren seemed to realize he'd overplayed his hand. He straightened his shirt, the mask sliding back into place. This is ridiculous. You're all overreacting to a simple misunderstanding. Kathy, honey, tell them we're happy. Kathy stepped forward, still trembling but standing taller. We're through, Darren. I want a divorce. You don't mean that, he said, his voice hardening. You're confused. Your sister has poisoned you against me. No, Kathy replied. You did that yourself. She pulled up her sleeve, revealing the bruises on her wrist. This is who you really are. Darren's face contorted with rage. He lunged again, this time knocking Dad aside. But before he could reach Kathy, I stepped in his path. 8 years ago, I would have cowered. Now I stood my ground. You don't get to hurt anyone else, I said. He grabbed my arm, just like he had countless times before, fingers digging into the same spot that had once been perpetually bruised. But this time, I wasn't that scared 18-year-old. I twisted out of his grip using the self-defense move I'd practiced hundreds of times. Darren, surprised by the resistance, stumbled forward. Dad recovered his balance and grabbed Darren from behind, restraining him just as hotel security burst into the room, followed shortly by the police who had responded to my panic button. The next few hours were a blur of statements, evidence submission, and Darren being led away in handcuffs, still protesting his innocence. Because the incident happened in front of witnesses and was recorded from multiple angles, the police had no choice but to take it seriously. The responding officers were surprisingly understanding, especially the female detective who took Kathy's statement privately. That night, we all stayed at my apartment. Kathy, my parents, Maya, and me. Safety in numbers. Kathy was quiet, processing everything that had happened. I didn't push her to talk. I remembered how overwhelming it felt in those first days after escaping Darren. In the morning, we met with a lawyer specializing in domestic violence cases. She helped Kathy file for a temporary restraining order and start divorce proceedings. Because they'd only been married a short time and had no shared assets, the divorce itself would be relatively straightforward. The emotional healing would take longer. Darren remained in custody, denied bail due to the evidence we provided showing his pattern of behavior with multiple women. The prosecutor decided to pursue charges not just for the incident at the hotel, but for the stalking and harassment as well. Over the next few weeks, more women came forward with similar stories about Darren, creating an undeniable pattern of predatory behavior. The case against him grew stronger by the day. Even his lawyer started looking for plea deals. Kathy decided to move back home with our parents temporarily. She needed space to heal, to figure out who she was outside of Darren's influence. I understood completely. We talked every day, rebuilding the sister bond that Darren had tried so hard to destroy. 3 months later, Darren accepted a plea deal. 6 years in prison with mandatory counseling and a permanent restraining order against contacting any of his victims, including Kathy and me. It wasn't the maximum sentence, but it was something. More importantly, there would be a record now, making it harder for him to hurt someone else in the future. On the 1-year anniversary of Kathy's wedding, we had a different kind of ceremony, a divorce party. Just a small gathering with family and friends who had supported us through everything. Maya baked a cake with freedom written on it, and James flew in for the weekend. We didn't talk about Darren or what had happened. We just celebrated being together, being safe. Kathy's still in therapy, working through her experience. So am I, honestly. Some wounds take longer to heal than others, but we're both getting there, day by day. I wish I could say I never think about Darren anymore, but that would be a lie. I still check my locks twice before bed, still glance over my shoulder when walking alone. Those habits might never fully disappear, but they don't control me anymore. The tracker app on my phone still pings sometimes with Kathy's location. We kept it by mutual agreement, a safety measure that brings us both comfort. Not out of control, but out of love. A way to say, I've got your back, without words. Last week, Kathy called to tell me she'd met someone. Just casual coffee dates for now, nothing serious. But she sounded happy, hopeful, taking things at her own pace, on her own terms. As for me, I'm focusing on the domestic violence support group Maya and I started. Turns out helping other women recognize and escape abusive relationships is pretty good therapy for my own trauma. Every success story feels like another brick in the wall between my past and future. Darren took 8 years of my life. The 8 I spent looking over my shoulder, questioning myself, waiting for the other shoe to drop. I won't give him any more. So that's my story, Reddit. Not the happily ever after you might have wanted, but a real one. My sister is safe. I'm safe. And the man who tried to destroy us both is exactly where he belongs. Behind bars, far away from anyone he can hurt. Update for those asking. Yes, I changed my locks again after everything. And yes, I still have the security cameras. Old habits die hard, but now they're my choice, not my fear.